That's me back, people. How you doing? Talking about all that food got me hungry. Had to get something to eat. All this nutrients talk. Anyway, I have named this fucking stream. I called it. Anyway, I have named this fucking stream. Come on. Right, how you doing, people? 5 people in already. Right. Various topics, including conspiracies, politics, religion, and science. Yep, Vlad, we are live. We are live once again. I only had fucking 6 hours sleep, but I can go in 6 hours. I can go in 5 hours. If I sleep too long, to be honest with you, I kind of tend to function less optimal. Get the chat back. Yep, we're live. We're live. So what time is it over there? It must be like 5 in the morning or something over there for you, Vlad. Is it? Like 5 in the morning? Right, I'm going to slam in the link and see fucking what happens, eh? Didn't be intimidated, people. I didn't bite. I'm actually quite a nice guy. Even my rivals, I will treat with respect. People might have seen it already, like P Mars. P Mars gives me quite a lot of stick, man. Unjust fucking stick. But you know what? I like him, so I'm not gonna take it too fucking personally. I think it's just a buddy thing. He's just trying to get my attention. Right, Vlad, we're going to see if we can get more people to join this. You missed my stream earlier. I done a wee stream earlier. I think the Rangers Celtic game could be on. Let's see Rangers Celtic. It's a big thing in Scotland here. Colette Whitney, who was in earlier, she's watching the game, I think. Oh, Celtic are winning 1-0. I think, yep, they're winning 1-0. 53 minutes they scored. They've only had one shot on target. The Edinburgh teams are doing terrible in the league. Yep, it's 1-0. There we go. If anyone's interested, Celtic and Rangers, 1-0. Right. So who's all out there, people? 7 people out there. 7 people. And only one person talking. Come on. What is getting on your nerves, people? People must have something to get off their chests. And this is a place. RT's latest video just posted emails reveals Monsanto ran smear campaign, vegan diet equals profits. Yep. Monsanto, everybody knows. Monsanto are one of these fucking Bill Gates fucking funded operations. GMOs, I think they're more about genetically modified food. Reckon farmers This is what I don't understand about veganism. Where are all the fucking farmers, man? Where are all the farmers? Where are the protests in the street? Like the thousands of farmers. If there's going to be like a fuel fucking strike or some shit like that, all the truckers get to the street, can like some kind of strike. Like, why isn't there some kind of protest against this veganism shit? Because it's at the end of the day, it's trying to wreck a whole fucking market that Britain is built on. Cattle and food and fucking, and veganism wants to destroy that. I'm sure the farmers would have something to say about that. They're quite happy just to fucking take handouts from the government, the farmers, not to grow stuff, to keep the value high. That's what I found too, that certain farmers out there, they're paid not to grow, to keep the value of like potatoes and that high. If all the farmers had successful grows of potatoes, the cost of a bag of potatoes would be next to nothing. So I think there's certain farmers who are given government subsidies not to grow, to keep the value of certain crops up. So maybe these fucking farmers are part of the problem as well. Maybe the whole fucking agenda needs looked at properly. Not just the vegans, maybe the farmers as well. Right, let's see this RT. I'll look to see what you're talking about. Muscle car RT. Monsanto smear campaign. I wouldn't always fucking trust everything that comes out of that fucking RT shit as well.
Newly released emails reveal how agri-chemical giant Monsanto attempted to discredit an action group campaigning against its weed killer. Moms across America had raised the alarm over the use of one of the company's leading products called Roundup.
That's your enemy. Beat the shit out of them and put them on the defensive, and you won't have this problem. I have been arguing for a week to beat the shit out of them, and I have clearly lost. We don't want to be seen as beating up on mothers. Nobody will listen to it anyway. It has to be done by third parties.
Well, in 2013, the
What's
action
with the
group
voice
sent an
though? Come
open
on.
letter to Monsanto's
Like,
top
fair enough, these could be legitimate emails, but what's with this voice? We know, moms know your mom would be proud of you if you put the health of the nation first and stop selling GMOs. It's like, what the fuck's with this acted out voice? You know what I mean? It's
management calling on them to stop selling GMO seeds and spraying crops with glyphosate and other pesticides. Moms Across America's direct group sent an open letter.
Mothers, get out of them, and I have clearly lost. We don't want to be seen as beating up on mothers. Nobody will listen to it anyway. It has to be done by third parties.
Well, in 2013, the action group sent an open letter to Monsanto's top management calling on them to stop selling GMO seeds and spraying crops with glyphosate and other pesticides. Moms Across America's director told us why the organization promotes organic farming.
All we need to do is to take matters into our own hands and to make sure that the food supply is safe and that our families are not exposed to toxic chemicals. And what we've done is created a Moms Across America gold standard. And so this is a new seal of approval that brands can get to show that they're not only organic and non-GMO, but they've gone the extra mile and gotten some pesticide testing done. Their packaging might even be biodegradable. Fair trade is used. Humanely raised animal products is used, and they support the transition from GMO chemical farming to regenerative organic farming. And so as a mother, and mothers buy 85% of the food, we believe that they are listening to us and that it does make a difference. And we ask all the consumers out there to continue speaking up and to go to momsacrossamerica.org and find out more about our gold standard that'll be launching next month.
Well, it's not just Moms Across America that have been targeted by Monsanto. Documents do reveal too. The company also operated a so-called intelligence fusion center. Its aim was to monitor and to discredit critics who claim that the glyphosate, the main ingredient in Monsanto's weed killer, is extremely dangerous to human health. Well, glyphosate is a herbicide and a crop drying agent, and after it is sprayed on the crops, it can end up in food, air.
right. Enough of that shit. We've got a guest eventually. How you doing, Dan?
Hey Jed, yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm just out in Morrison's, gonna pick up some mussels.
I've inspired you, mate.
Yeah, I could do a live stream of me buying some mussels, but I'm just gonna mute myself for a bit. I'll speak to you in a minute, yeah?
Right, no bother, mate. Cool. So Dan W, he's going to get some muscle. Let me show you how it's done.
Yeah.
Right. True story, says Rock Lover. New Zealand goes to work in Spain and buys tomatoes. On the package, product of New Zealand. Goes home, buys tomatoes, and on the package, product of Spain. It's a strange one with Britain, especially with the Brexit, how they're talking about all this food not being able to get into Britain because of fucking Brexit. But doesn't Britain fucking export a lot of its food to other countries? Why don't we just start eating our own stuff? You know what I mean? So Dan is way to Sainsbury's. Anyone else want to jump in? What do you think, Vlad? What do you think, mate? Like, I was in two minds about this Monsanto thing, man. Like, I was kind of jumping back and forth thinking, right, if the powers that be could feed the world, why would they be kind of, if they could feed the whole world with this new, well, I'm going to share Dan, wait there, I'm going to share Dan. Oh, he's in the muscle section. Oh, he's going for the good ones. Look at that, he's going for the fucking good ones. Crab meat. Oh, no crab meat.
Just looking for mussels.
That looks like a good selection you got there, mate.
Yeah, Morrison's isn't too bad, yeah.
It's quite good,
I've
man.
never bought a mussel in my life. I might have to go to the jarred section.
You've never had mussels in your life?
Well, I can't remember the last time I had one.
Oh, right. So have you ever had the pickled ones? Oh, there we go. I can see them.
These are just massive though, aren't they?
I would go for the wee jarred ones first, mate.
Yeah.
Aye. They're just like little pickles. Right, I have to tell you, they do a seafood platter, Dan. So that's Dan getting his mussels. That's amazing, eh? Like, you do a little stream, you talk about mussels. Next minute, some guy's out there buying mussels. Why fly tomatoes around the planet? Profits, plain and simple. Yep. Well, Rock Lover, since you've got so much to say, you should come in and voice your opinion, mate. Let's hear what you've got to say. Instead of just chat, fucking trolling all the time. Look at Dan. Dan's a real man. Dan will come fucking on. Dan's not intimidated. He'll even go to fucking Flat Earth events. Right, let's see this fucking email.
And also tap water. In several lawsuits, Monsanto's glyphosate-based product was ruled to have caused cancer. However, the company states that its product is safe to use and does not cause cancer, and it's appealed against those verdicts. Moms Across America's director again told us this shows the company's disregard for public health.
This is an example of the type of mentality.
Right, let me play devil's advocate here, people, right? Just say they did create a technology where everyone could be fed. Wouldn't it be under the interest of the powers that be to try and tar it with cancer and fucking all this kind of stuff? So the third world countries don't get fed. They just demonize this genetically modified stuff and it gets thrown out the window. Tell Dan to pick up Boyle in the bag Scottish kippers. Bloody brilliant. No, he can do what he wants. I'm not telling Dan to do anything. He can make his own choices. I'm just saying that shellfish and seafood is very important in your diet and it has lots of stuff that you need, man. It's not lots of stuff that you need. Right. So, we've known about Monsanto for a while. Like I said, when I first heard about it, imagine if you could feed the world with this stuff. English tomatoes are vile. I buy beef tomatoes for £1 for just one. About £1 for just one. Jesus, that's a bit expensive. So Dan is getting his muscles. It'd be quite cool to see him eating them. He'll probably fucking puke. Right. I've still got my books open here. I've got my British Israelites and the House of Glory. Jeremiah dwelt among his kinsmen in Northern Ireland for the rest of his days. He, having been the much-honoured Olam Fala, or divine man, of Irish history of the period, he persuaded King Heremon of Okiat, Heremon as he is often called, to change the name of the capital from Lothair Crofin to Tara. There at Tara, the grand Olam Fala, Jeremiah built a college, the Mur Olam, for the education of priests. He erected also at Tara a high round hill, which is still there, which is the holy hill of Tara, or the sacred hill of the Olam Fala. In that hill Jeremiah tenderly, safely buried the Ark of the Covenant, the commandment stones, and the King David's golden harp. So this is why maybe Ireland's got this harp as their symbol. Insofar as is known, the sacred objects are still deep within the holy mound. Incidentally, the harp is an important symbol in the Isles today. The flag of the Irish nation shows a golden harp in a field of emerald green, and in the Royal Standard of Britain is displayed the image of David's harp plus the images of the Lion of Judah and Judah's whelps. In due season, Jeremiah passed away in Ulster, and to his hour, his tomb, hewn out of solid rock, is seen on a small island named Davenish in the lake of Lough Erin, or Lough Erne, 4 miles below Enniskillen in County Fermanagh, Isle of the Saints. In addition to the foregoing, it is definitely known that a noted company of the intimates of Jesus of Nazareth went to Ireland just after the crucifixion. In the group were Lazarus, Mary Magdalene, Martha, and her handmaid Marcella, a disciple named Maximin, and Joseph of Arimathea. This party had greatly vexed the persons in power in Jerusalem following the crucifixion. They were all seized, placed upon a raft, which was equipped with neither sails nor oars, towed out to the open sea behind a ship, and there the raft was cut free from its moorings. Evidently, the authorities behind this plot felt certain the group would drift helplessly and perish, but as has been noted, they did not. In due time, the tides bore the float across the Mediterranean to what is now the port of the Seven Seas, Marseille, and the entire company was saved. The heroic little band tarried a while in the city that had proved their haven, and then Joseph received a cordial invitation from certain druids of high rank in the Isles to come there with his entire party. This they did, and in the year of AD 38, which was just 8 years after the crucifixion, Joseph and his friends settled at Yins, Avalon, or Glastonbury, where they enjoyed the full protection of the British king, Avar Agus. Avar Agus. I don't think I've ever heard of that king. Avar Agus. Let's see, Avar Agus. Avar Agus. Main menu is a young knight who becomes Dorigen's husband in the Franklin's Tale. Dorigen and Avargus marry, swearing that neither will ever exert absolute power over the other. Sorry guys, I wasn't even sharing that with you. Right, let's see, who the hell's Avargus? He was a king. Avargus. King Avargus. I'll put a king. Did you mean King Averages? Avaragus is the young knight who becomes Dorigen's husband in the Franklin's Tale. He and Dorigen enter upon a contract to regard each other as friends in marriage and to allow each other utmost freedom. Dorigen rashly promises Aurelius, the young clerk who loves her, to return to his love if he can make the black rocks on the coast disappear. I don't think this actually... Oh, wait there, it does. Aurelius engages a magician from Orleans who accomplishes the task, to Dorigen's great distress. When Avaragus learns of the dilemma, he orders Dorigen to keep her promise, but to let no one know, thus cancelling their contract of utmost freedom. Dorgan meets Aurelius in the garden, and when he sees her in distress, he releases her from her promise. Geoffrey of Monmouth tells the story of Arviragus, who loves his wife, Genisua, above all else. Historia Regum Britanniae. See, that's the thing. You can read these books and you come across a name of somebody, and you type it in the internet and you get nothing really back. Glastonbury, it was recalled, was the seat of the supreme Druidic corps, and presently it was made over to Joseph and his group as a gift from the crown, Arviragus. It is quite boldly obvious to one without prejudice, and who will take the pains to inform himself in the matter, that the first Christian church was established by Joseph of Arimathea and his followers at Glastonbury, England, 20 miles or so south of Bristol, in the year of our Lord 38. The first Christian church was established by Joseph of Arimathea at Glastonbury. There at Glastonbury, the founders of the church were soon afterwards joined by the apostle Simon Zelotes, who became the secondary missionary. A little later, still a third teacher came, a dignitary named Aristobulus, father-in-law of St. Peter, brother of Barnabas, and a member of the Council of 70. Anon Aristobulus was ordained the first bishop of the Isles by no less a personage than St. Paul. It is to the Isles, then, in conclusion of this chapter, that the attention of the earnest student is pointed in his quest of the divinely appointed place of sanctuary for Israel, of the place where the church was first founded, and as a land that was ordained as the new and everlasting homeland of the chief or head nation of the house of glory. In the Isles were the powerful young whelps of the Lion of Judah generated, and today we find them grown to vigorous maturity, great prominence, and world leadership. Outside of and in conjunction with the Isles themselves, in the mighty nations of America, Canada, Australia, the Union of South Africa, and others of blood and genius of the House of Glory. Chapter 6. Certain signs of the present House of Glory. Interesting stuff, this book. Sorry, I'm probably not even fucking sharing it with you. I'll share my book. This was the book I was just reading from. Right, so within chapter number 4 hereof, there was briefly listed, with little or no comment thereon, 21 signs or marks of Israel as they have been down through the ages and as they are today. Through an examination of these characteristics or distinguishing marks as found reflected in modern peoples, mighty Israel of today may be exactly identified beyond successful challenge by both race and nations. For the sake of convenience and as an introduction to the comment on each, the same points are again displayed here, item by item. 1. Israel was to bear Jacob's name, i.e. Israel. It has already been conclusively established herein that the House of Glory bore the proud name of Israel for centuries, from the time of Jacob down to, or a little beyond, the days when they were taken captive by Assyria. 2. Israel was to be lost. This also has been shown to have been the case. Israel was scattered throughout the north country, as written in Jeremiah 56. Most regrettably, the consciousness of their exact identity and of their exalted destiny in times yet future is still lost to most of the teeming millions who are present Israel members the world over. Here in America, by way of example, there are 130 million of souls. Of this, some 3 million are Jews. These Jews, and the other people of the land as well, in most cases, look upon all who are not Jews as being Gentiles. This is a most tragic error, which, happily, is being slowly dispelled by the dissemination of the truth about the vital matter. Perhaps not less than 85 million of Americans who are of the white race are Israelites, but not Jews, even in part. Why do we persist in calling these good Israelitish Americans of today Gentiles. All of us Americans who are descended from the fallen bloods are of Israel, and, as apparent, the number is legion. 1. Irish. 2. Scotch. 3. English. 4. Welsh. 5. Swedish. 6. Norwegian. 7. Danish. 8. Saxon German. 9. Breton French. And 10. Basque. In addition to these 10 bloods, which are the purer strains of modern Israel, but which are undeniably mixed with some Gentile blood in more or less degree, there is some of the Israel stock, though in much lesser quantity, in the Swiss, Italian, Dutch, French, and German strains, which circulate in the veins of a very appreciable number of modern Americans. The truth is, then, that about the only Americans who are overwhelmingly Gentile in their origins are the Negroes. In just the one land of India, for instance, the whole of the vast and fertile region is Israel's, its land and cities, and in its millions of Gentiles are possessed and governed by a comparative handful of Israel in the persons of the British. Israel was to be the great and successful colonizers. What nations led the world, and have for centuries, in successful colonizing, in conquering the wilderness of the earth, and in causing them to bloom as a garden, and to be peopled by many millions? As a single example of the many, one may dwell with profit for a few minutes upon the magnificent saga of our own American pioneers and their great accomplishments in the face of bitterest adversity. Before incoming and growing, Israel, other peoples were to die out. This is likewise self-evident to any informed mind. To cite an example from distant lands of Israel in this instance, what has been the fate of the Tasmanian and Maori natives of Australia and New Zealand since Israel colonized those two countries of the land down under? A dozen more of the Aboriginal peoples of as many lands could be added to the testimony here, where they required in rebuttal. 9. Items 9 and 10 are placed together here since they are so closely allied. Israel was to be a head nation, and Israel was to be a great company of nations. Is not England a head of a nation? Obviously so. Is not America another? And with respect to the company of nations, we have a most compelling proof in the undraping of them that Britain, America are Israel. Testimony, which applies to only one company, which is cohesive unit in language, customs, culture, commerce, etc. What a significant array of nations are the following 19. 1. England and our whelps of the line of Judah, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Union of South Africa, Egypt, India, Arabia, Afghanistan, Borneo in part, and countries and countless isles of the sea. 2. America and her possessions of Alaska, the Philippines, Hawaii, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and other insular lands. Alongside this imposing family of Israel, which is the greater part of it, the student may list for himself the possessions of any other world power, a group of powers, and see for himself how little they will compare with the above in resources and wealth. Britain and America together as a unit in Israel have 1/4 of all the Earth's area and 1/5 of all its people. 11. Israel to be great in war on land and sea. Here is yet another potent and undisputable proof of the identity of modern Israel. In all of the history since the Assyrian captivity, which is a span of 2,500 years, Israel has never lost a war to any alien people. Single battles and series of battles have they lost, but never a war. And please note carefully that the word alien in the assertion above. Alien, as used there, means non-Israel. Yes, William the Conqueror subdued the Isles in 1066, but he was a Norman, and the Normans were a sub-tribe of Israel. Hence, they were not an alien people. Twice America has defeated Britain in war, but America is of the same blood, is Manasseh of Israel. The statement stands as first rendered above, for there are no exceptions to it. What heroic men stopped with their long bows, their claymores, and their matchless ability as soldiers such mighty conquerors as the Magyars, the Huns, the Mohammedans, the hordes of Mongols under Genghis Khan, and numerous other invaders alien to Israel? Always these raiders, however invincible they may have been before, were eventually defeated when they entered Israel's confines and clashed with Israel in war. It would be a display of wisdom for those powers abroad today who are planning to soon lash out viciously in battle towards the Israel nations to consider and to heed the prophecies of the Bible and Pyramid first, and to check the eloquent manner in which they have always been fulfilled. And from these studies draw the correct conclusion that it would be best for them not to disturb or arouse modern Israel if they hope to win in their forays. But, unfortunately, the warmongers among the Gentile nations appear to be unlearned in the subject of the prophecies, or else they disbelieve them. 12. Israel was meant to possess the gates of their enemies. A gate, as used in the prophecies, obviously means a passage through a barrier, through some strategic points such as a strait, a peninsula, islands, mountain passes, and things of that nature, which are often spoken of today as gates or gateways. By means of placing a map of the world in front of the eyes and checking and rechecking, one may soon determine who owns nearly all the gates, which dominate every sea and continent from vantage bases. Many of these guardians of the ways being impregnably fortified, it will be discovered readily that Britain and America stand guard at the greater part of them. A few of the many noted in the manner specified are these: Gibraltar, Malta, Suez, Egypt, the isles themselves, which are the gates to the North and Baltic Seas, Panama, the islands surrounding the Caribbean on all sides, the Falklands, which are the keys to the Magellan and the Horn, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, India, South Africa, Alaska, and its far-flung Aleutians, Hawaii, the Philippines, etc. 13. Israel was to be a lender of money. Yes, it is quite justifiable and hence fully pardonable for the dear taxpayer to wince and exclaim "ouch" when the sight contacts this one, for it certainly does strike in a sensitive spot. We of America are still acutely aware of the billions in cash we sent abroad during the recent World War, and just following it, for all of which generosity we have received in return, the odious appellation of Uncle Shylock and very little money. In all probability, we never shall see the present balance of these debts paid, except in the case of the Honourable Finland. Next to America, Great Britain loaned and lost the most in funds, including much of what she borrowed over here. Need any more be said to set forth most convincingly how well the Israel nations of today meet this requirement of their identity? 14. Israel was to always have a monarch. Of the few monarchies whose royal rulers have not been deposed during the past 30 years or so, England is the most prominent and powerful. Her throne is still intact, and it is written that it is the everlasting one, the only one, which shall never be abolished. 15. Israel to have David's throne and seed ruling over them. This does not necessarily mean all of Israel, but rather the chiefest parts of it. The present line of British royalty, it has been stated, is descended in part from King David, the psalmist. The family also comes down in its lineage in the same course of ancestry from an ancient King Heremon and his princess bride, Tia Tamar Tepe. Unimpeachable documentary testimony, ready written herein, is required, the fact of it being fully evident. 17. Israel was to repossess Palestine and invite brother Judah to return. Israel, in the form of Great Britain, accomplished this repossession of Palestine from the Gentile Turkey during the World War and did invite Judah to return there. Part of Judah is there today under the mandate and protection of England. The fulfillment of these prophesied events is one of the most dramatic and enthralling narratives in modern history, but its substance is sufficiently great to almost comprise a volume in itself. For details and accurate information on the subject by the author, can we recommend no finer book than that of Bryant, And It Shall Come to Pass. See if I can get that book. Anyway, I'm going to look at the chat for a wee second. I went on a wee bit of a detour here reading this book. Everyone's still there. 18. Though given bill of divorcement, yet Israel was to be more faithful than her married sister Judah, Jehovah being the husband implied here. The numbers of all the house of Judah the world over, as of today, do not exceed 10 millions of souls. Compared to this house, the house of Israel as a unit will conservatively enumerate not less than 500 million, a majority of 50 to 1 at least in favour of fruitful Israel, the divorced sister. 19, 20, and 21, these points have already been elucidated herein to the extent of requiring no more comment. Supplemental to the signs of modern Israel listed above, there are yet numerous others which are less commonly known, but which are equally as conclusive in truly identifying the great house of glory. And there is, guys, there's loads of stuff. Even the Union Jack is called the Union Jack, and that means United Jacob, United Tribes of Jacob, the Union Jack. And Britain, in Hebrew, Britam, means men of the covenant. So there's loads of little things that say that Britain is in fact Israel. Some of the additional signs are now presented with at least one reference given in each for scriptural verification. A few of them are also self-evident and no comment shall be made on them. Witness the following. 1. Israel was to be spread abroad over the earth to east, west, north, and south. Genesis 28:14. So, as you see, people, the British Empire, where the sun never set, were all over the earth. They had Australia, they had America, they had South Africa, they had every major corner of the earth. Israel doesn't. That country over in the Middle East called Israel, what do they own? They're struggling to even keep their own country there. And Britain and the royals dominated fucking 3/4 of the world. Right, so that's one prophetic thing. Number 2, Israel to dwell apart from other nations. Israel to continue as a nation forever. Israel to have a new home subsequent to the captivity. Israel nations to be wealthy from commerce. Israel's new chief homeland to be northwest of Palestine. So northwest, Palestine, northwest, that's over towards Europe. Israel's post-captivity domains never to be successfully invaded, i.e. by any alien or non-Israel people. And that's, well, as far as I've been alive, like they were saying earlier in the chapter, apart from the Norman invasion, who were practically the same genetics, they weren't aliens, they're the same people, Normans. We haven't been invaded by the Mongols, by, I suppose, Romans, but Romans were, they were kind of Europeans as well, they weren't aliens. Israel's post-captivity domains never to be successfully invaded by any alien or non-Israeli people. This promise still holds good and shall in days to come. Yea, totalitarian powers of the non-Israeli blood. 8. Israel to reign over other peoples, but herself to be subjects of none. So this is maybe where Brexit comes in. Why should we be the subjects of these European powers? Israel to be keepers of the Sabbath forever. Israel was to carry and spread the gospel all over the earth. That's what all the Celtic saints done. Israel to be like a lion, symbol of Britain, Numbers 23:24 and 24:29. Israel nations to have supreme domination over the ocean, Isa 65, Psalms 89:25, Deuteronomy 23:19, Numbers 24:7. Is this not reminiscent of Columbia, the gem of the ocean, and of Britannia rules the waves? So Israel nations to have supreme dominion over the ocean, and you've got Britannia rules the waves. Israel's were to be the lands of greatest mineral wealth, Deuteronomy 33:15-19. So Israel, modern Israel nowadays in the Middle East, hasn't really got that much mineral wealth. But in the ancient times, Britain, especially with tin, and you needed tin to make bronze and shit like that. Well, you needed it to mix the alloy. Britain was a land of precious things and minerals. One needs but to check this matter through any good geography to note how amazingly true this is of modern Israel, particularly of America and Britain, who have the precious things of the hills in great abundance: oil, coal, copper, silver, gold, iron, etc. So, people, Israel is Britain and America. This country over in the Middle East, that's bullshit, man. That's just a decoy. That country that was created over in the Middle East, that's a fucking decoy. That's a buffer zone. That's a place to keep the Middle Easterns down. The real fucking Israel is in Britain, people. I've been trying to stress this point so hard lately. And if it is the case, if Britain is fucking Israel, that puts into question the whole third temple and fucking the end of the world and all this shit over there. Over there, anyway. Right. Israel's, whose were to be the lands of greatest agricultural wealth, Deuteronomy 33, 13, 14, 28. This is a truth equally as obvious as the item immediately above and may be proved in the same manner as being overwhelmingly true of Britain and America in grains, fruits, cotton, linen, etc., and all of the good things of the earth. Israel, and you can't say the same for fucking the Middle East. It's a fucking barren dust bowl over there. It's a barren dust bowl. They maybe can grow some olives and some pomegranates in certain seasons, but at the end of the day, that land is pretty infertile. Compare it to Britain and Ireland, green, lush. Israel lands to be envied and feared by other nations. Well, that kind of speaks for itself. 12. Deuteronomy. As an example of this, witness the volume Mein Kampf by Herr Adolf Hitler and that Aryan-defying narrative, Der Führer, delineates his great ambitions for his fatherland with consummate frankness, and in it he boldly penned, beforehand, some of the very things he has fulfilled within this year of 1938, notably his annexation of Austria and of the Sudetenland, There is set forth therein 2 other grandiose dreams that he hopes to accomplish in days yet future. But the outstanding feature of the book, insofar as it aptly concerned with this study, is this: Herr Hitler expresses the fervent hope that all through the period of his planned conquest he may know the good fortune of keeping England neutral. What? I've never read this Mein Kampf, to be honest. I've heard about it, but I've never heard about Mein Kampf. I take it he didn't want to pick a fight with England, by the looks of it. Rock Lover, why'd you have to state the obvious in one of my fucking streams? You are preaching to the choir, little boy. Rock Lover. This is one of my subjects I've specialised in so long. I've read so many books. And you have just took those little bits from me and now you go around spreading it in all the comments and try to take credit for it when I've done all the fucking research into this shit. And there's not many people, especially my age, looking into this shit. So pipe it down, Rock Lover. Reel your fucking neck in a little bit. Anyway, back to the book. So this is about Hitler then. He expresses the fervent hope that all through this period of his planned conquest, he may know the good fortune of keeping England neutral. That is a fucking weird one, that. Mind blown, people. Mind blown. I don't understand, Rock Lover, why you put these Great Britain is Israel, Lost Tribes of Dama and Mount of Tara location. You're typing and stuff into my chat to me. Well, is it directed to me? I could teach you a shitload on this subject. Don't come with your little fucking comments. Matthew Taylor says, I'm looking into this stuff. Maybe we could have a chat sometimes. Yep, definitely. We could organise something. When this video uploads, Matthew, if you want to leave a comment and we can get together and maybe chat on one of these platforms. Right. So he wanted to keep England neutral. Certainly, that is a bit of a sagacious observation on the part of the modern little corporal, who, like his predecessor of the same title, Napoleon, may be afflicted with delusions of grandeur. It is apparent from his writings, although by inference rather than by direct admissions, that Hitler fears the might of Britain, although at the recent Munich conference he twisted the lion's tail with immunity from peril. At that historic session, however, Herr Hitler was cognizant of the fact that he dedicated to a Britain who was acutely aware of her tragic unpreparedness for a major conflict. But a short time hence, when the great Israel Empire is really prepared, she will no longer toady to anyone. Assyria of old took Israel of that day captive after a crushing defeat. But Assyria of today, which is Germany, despite all of her vaunted might, never will be able to overwhelm modern Israel in war. It is so written in a book infinitely greater than Mein Kampf. Israel's chief homeland was to lose one of her children. This is number 16, people. Israel's chief homeland was to lose one of her children, colonial possessions, and then, because of continued rapid growth, was to seek still more room for expansion. Isaiah 49:20. This is a bit of a prophecy, being so brilliant. The verse is quoted here. The children which thou, Britain Israel, shalt have, after thou hast lost the other, shall say again in thine ears, the place is too strait for me. Give place to me that I may dwell. Most pertinent queries arise now. What other does Isaiah mean? What child was the chief mother of Israel of latter days to lose? It is the same one which Pyramid prophecy also stated would revolt against her and become an independent nation of its own, a particularly mighty one, America, firstborn, colonial possession of Britain, but she lost it. Following that time, however, her colonizing ventures were many and most successful, as prophesied also. Israel was to lose all trace of her distinguished lineage for centuries. Hosea, Isaiah. It has been revealed that this is a tragic fact, but from this generation forward, the true awareness of our identity will penetrate more and more into the consciousness of Israel's people, until in due season all of them shall know it. Number 18, Israel was to have a heathen, non-Israel empire also. Chief of the nations composing her non-Israel. The Ish means man, men, or son, or sons. This being true, when British properly and literally means covenant men or covenant sons, while Britain, by the same token, signifies covenant land or covenant country. The covenant referred to in the name is nothing less than the covenant, that of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, etc., made with him by the Spirit. And people, see, when it comes to the Jews and these patriarchs, like Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, when you try and research the tombs in Israel, tombs of the patriarchs, right, I'm going to screen share something with you guys. Right, let's have a look. Right, so here's the cave of the patriarchs, or tomb of the patriarchs, known to Jews as the cave of Machpelah. So the cave of the patriarchs. The cave of the patriarchs, or tombs of the patriarchs, known to Jews as the cave of Machpelah, cave of the double tombs or cave of the double caves, and to Muslims as the sanctuary of Abraham, is a series of caves located in the heart of the old city of Hebron in the southern West Bank. According to the Abrahamic religions, the cave and adjoining field were purchased by Abraham as a burial plot Over the cave stands a large rectangular enclosure dating from the Herodian era. Byzantine Christians took it over and built a basilica, which after the Muslim conquest was converted into the Ibrahimi Mosque. Crusaders took over the site in the 12th century, but was taken back by Saladin in 1188 and reconverted into a mosque. Israel took control of the site in 1967, dividing the structure into a synagogue and a mosque. In 1994, the Hebron massacre occurred, in which a Jewish settler killed 29 Muslims praying in the mosque. Right, sorry guys, I'm just answering a wee. My point is, people, these tombs of the patriarchs, even Jews don't believe that these are the proper sites for them. Even Jewish scholars don't think they're the real tombs of the patriarchs. But you should look into this more. Anyway, let's see. Get wee messages from everywhere. Right. Let's see. Decidedly enlightening as this derivation and meaning of the word British, it is not any more so than is our beloved word of America. Israel of today is indebted to Professor Muskowski, eminent scientist in etymology of Oberlin University, for the following astonishing facts concerning the true meaning of the name America. America, as we all know, was named for the geographer Amerigo Vespucci. In the Latin form, Amerigo is Americus, of which America is the feminine form. The Old Gothic, which was Israel, form of the word America was Amalric, which still appears in German language, slightly corrupted from the Gothic style as Emmerich. Amel, be it carefully observed, means heaven, while Rick means kingdom. The modern German word is Himmelreich, or kingdom of heaven, or land of harmony, or blessed land of peace. According to the magazine Youth Message, which is published in London, the following facts are also apropos. In the Hebrew language, the word for kingdom is meluk, or ameluka. In every language, according to the late renowned Professor Odlum, the letter L is interchangeable with the letter R in certain circumstances. Hence, the ancient word of Ameluka is identified with America, which is America, in its Latin form. Once again, then, and in a different language, America means a land of harmony, kingdom of heaven, and blessed land of peace. Perhaps the pessimist shall arise to say the above is a conception which is grossly exaggerated, to say the least. Perhaps it is, viewed from the standpoint of today, yet to many people who dwell in benighted lands, and there are millions of these unfortunates, it would seem almostly heavenly in contrast to enjoy the blessings and comforts of just the average American for a brief season. And more so than in any other land of this globe, the actual potentialities of the kingdom itself rapidly are being made manifest in our midst. Let the prophet of doom who thinks otherwise journey abroad into other countries, as some of us have, and which from the distance may seem more roseate in their promised splendour than ours. Let him tarry there but briefly, living the life that those really helpless ones lead. Just as quickly as it is possible unto him, more than likely he shall wend his way back to America, with a paean of appreciation and thanksgiving singing in his heart. Here are just a few very illuminating statistics, for example, which are taken from an unofficial United States government publication that is on the desk of the author at this time. These are not propaganda, for we do not need to propagandize. They are authentic. In substance, here are the exact figures. 1. Fewer than 7 out of 100 people in the world live in the USA. The figure is almost exactly 1/15 of the Earth's people, 1 in America to every 14 outside of it. 2. Yet we of America have 35% of the world's railroads, 45% of the world's radios, 50% of the world's telephones, 70% of the world's automobiles, and we of America use 50% of all the world's silk, 59% of all the world's petroleum, 50% of all the world's rubber, 21% of such a common commodity as sugar. The total buying power of labour alone, at the present standard of wages of the working men of America, is greater than that of all the men in Europe combined, and larger than that of the more than 1 billion Asiatics. London is not a banking centre of the world. We of the USA actually possess 2/3 of the civilized banking resources of the whole world. These facts are not in any sense shown with a spirit of idle boast. Rather, they are given that still more Americans may know the truth about the greatness of their land and their fellow citizens, and that knowing the facts, they may be more grateful to their loving Maker for the blessings he has showered his dear Manasseh of today. Refute the above if you can, Mr. Soapbox Calamity Howler. Right, people, I'm going to end it there. Thanks for coming round, and I will see you in the next stream. Cheers.